Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti. We are currently exploring the scripture Mysticism of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are currently studying the various avatars. Commentaries by my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So in today's Satsang, let's study the Matsya Avatara, the divine fish. Once at the end of an ancient kalpa is a time cycle, Brahma, the creator, lay down to rest. As he dozed off, Brahmaji spoke out the Vedas, which normally are kept in his mind as a secret. Immediately, the demon Hayagriva, who was standing nearby waiting for that opportunity, caught hold of the Vedas and stole them. Appalled by what Hayagriva had done, Lord Vishnu resolved to incarnate upon the earth to remedy the situation. Thus, one day, when sage Satyavrata was practicing austerity by the banks of a river, a little fish came up with the water he had taken into his cupped hands during the offerings of libations. The king sage immediately threw the fish back into the water, but to his surprise, the fish spoke to him saying, "I am a small fish, and I am always afraid of bigger fish who might swallow me. O sage, protect me." Feeling pity and a sense of compassion towards the little fish, sage Satyavrata picked it up in his hands, placed it in a small jar, and took it to his hermitage with great affection. In just one night, the fish became bigger and could not be contained in the small jar. So the sage moved it to a bucket full of water, but quickly it grew so large that it had to be moved into a pond and then to the deeper pool. As the fish continued to grow and asked the sage for help, Satyavrata moved him to a still larger pool and then to a lake and then to a river and finally placed him lovingly in the ocean. As the gigantic fish entered the ocean, he smilingly said, "O valiant sage, you have sustained me and protected me, and I am going to do the same for you. Very soon this entire creation is going to be destroyed, for the time of pralaya. Pralaya means universal deluge is coming, and all will be submerged under water and will perish. You, however, must protect the essence of the world so that it can be created again afterwards. Therefore, just as Pralaya begins, a huge ship sent by me will come to you. Place in that boat every kind of seed, samples of all plants and animal life, representatives of all living creatures. Then, carrying that essence of creation, you and the Saptarishis, the seven sages, should protect yourself from the elements by staying inside the boat. I will then appear, and you will recognize me by a horn on my head. Tie the boat to my horn using the great serpent Vasuki as a rope, and I will lead you and your boat through the dark seas. At that time, due to the enlightenment within your heart, you will experience me as Brahman, the absolute self." Following these instructions, the sage gathered the specimens of all plants and animals, the essence of a new creation. Soon the rains came and all objects and beings began to be engulfed by the turbulent and gigantic waves of Pralaya. But then, as the divine fish Matsya Avatara had promised, the boat appeared and Satyavrata, the seven sages, and the plants and animals went aboard. When that magnificent golden fish appeared, Satyavrata tied the boat to his mighty horn, and the fish began to navigate through those turbulent waters. While thus sporting in the ocean, Matsya Avatara taught the sages in the boat to an entire Purana, giving the highest insight into wisdom, devotion, and action. When the waters of deluge finally receded, Brahma awoke, and Lord Vishnu, having destroyed the demon Hayagriva, resorted the Vedas to Brahma. Then King Satyavrata, graced with enlightenment, became the Manu of the next time cycle or Kalpa, and as such the progenitor of the human race. From that word we get the word Manushya or man, Manu. Manu was the first person to create civilization according to Sanatana Dharma. So the mystical meaning of this story is, as you can see, one is very familiar, sounds familiar, like the story of the Bible and of the great flood and Noah's Ark, in which a pair of each type of living being was protected so that the earth could be populated again. Whether or not it reflects an actual geographical development of great floods in ancient times, the story has a profound spiritual message. Brahmaji represents the purified mind that glows with the knowledge that you are Brahman. You are one with God. You are not a limited personality. Brahma's falling asleep implies coming under the influence of avidya. Avidya means ignorance, represented by Hayagriva. That demon has stolen the knowledge possessed by the pure mind, and it must be recovered. When you begin to practice meditation and samadhi, superconsciousness, there is born within you a mystic insight called antardrishti, inner vision. This is when the divine self incarnates within your personality as Matsya Avatara. That insight at first is like a small fish wiggling in a small environment. However, if you nourish that insight, it will rapidly outgrow the environment in which it was placed, like the fish moving from the jar to the pond, to the lake, to the river, and then finally to the ocean. That mystical insight outgrows the family in which you were born, the society to which you belong, the country in which you are a citizen. It allows you to outstep all the concepts, thoughts, and mental barriers that condition your mind. All these limitations of mind are transcended. That insight blooms into intuition, which in turn flourishes into the highest awareness of cosmic consciousness. Through the practice of meditation, the world is as if drawn into a state of dissolution. All the impure impressions or ashubha samskaras based on ego consciousness are dissolved in the waters of samadhi and are replaced by pure impressions or called shubha samskaras, the seeds of the transformed and elevated personality in the making. When those sublime impressions are carried in the boat of the purified mind, which is tied to the horn of intuitive vision or prajna, the soul is led across the ocean of the world process to the bliss of enlightenment. So what a beautiful mystical explanation. So the key here is, do not just let your mind and intellect argue that how could these things be possible, or they feel like fairy tales. Don't get stuck in that. Listen to Swamiji's deeper teaching and meaning and extract that for your spiritual evolution. Just like when you churn the milk, out of it comes butter. When you heat the butter, out of it comes ghee. And therefore, in butter there is the ghee, in the milk there is the butter and the ghee, but you have to work to get it. You have to understand the deeper implications. Similarly, in fire there is in wood there is fire, but you have to strike it and you have to burn it for the fire to emerge. It's not automatically visible. Much in the same way, Brahman or God is within us, but we have to do the friction of sadhana and our self-effort. So let's continue to the next avatara, the manifestation of Nrisimha avatara and the devotee Prahlada. So we will continue this in tomorrow's satsang. I think that would be more appropriate since we are almost running to our 10 to 12 minute timeline. So I will see you in tomorrow's satsang, and we will be covering Narasimha avatara in tomorrow's satsanga. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, and if you stick with it and share it with others, and if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We will continue to share these beautiful deep insights of Swami Jyotirmayananda ji's great work that has come from his enlightened visions, and I think we will all benefit from that, and the profound mysteries of Sanatana Dharma will be coded, decoded one day at a time. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.